Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Middle Reviews, and today we're giving you guys our final review of The Screaming of the Valkyries by Cradle of Filth. So we've been listening to this album nonstop throughout the entire week, and I'm going to make some comments about the singles, because I had some comments about those last week.
Okay.
I said that I didn't think they picked very good singles for this record.
Yes, you did say that.
And I feel similar to how I felt in that regard last week, but not exactly the same.
Okay.
White Hellebore is a great song. I love this song. I think the grooves, the melodic vocals in the chorus, it's a hooking track that really adds to the atmosphere. That drum groove on the hi-hat when it comes in, love that. It's awesome. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel tired. The talking at the end Danny does, I love that too. It's great for a single. I think maybe it probably should have been the first single or second. I don't think it should have been the last one. And to comment on something Danny Filth said a while ago regarding the release of this album, he's like, oh man, we kept ripping ourselves off. This just sounds like our old stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that it sounds like a rip-off of the old stuff, but there's elements here and there that you can tell, oh, this is kind of like that. This is kind of like that. And I think that's a sweet spot you can hit because it's like, well, we sound like the old school stuff, but it doesn't sound like a rip-off of the old school stuff. You know, it doesn't just sound like something we've already done. And I feel like White Hellebore is a good example. If you gave that song like 90s era production, it would sound like it would blend right in with all the stuff from that time.
It could.
I think if it was Danny's 90s voice, if you had that kind of mix for the band, if you had a different kind of arrangement for like the symphonic stuff, because I feel like the production level is what kind of gives that big veil of like the modern Cradle. But if you were to basically give it that production quality, I think it would sound a lot more like the old school stuff than you'd think.
I feel like you can kind of say that about any song though.
I can to a degree. I think, look at something like most of the songs off Thornography. I feel like they might stick out just from their composition.
That's a different album. We're not talking about that. So that's not what I meant.
Oh, so you mean anything from this record?
From this album.
Okay, yeah.
This record. If you tweaked a few things here and there, it's gonna sound like it's 25 years old.
Yeah, it could,
right?
Yeah.
And there's some songs on there like the last song, When Misery Was a Stranger. I feel like this song's the most old school sounding Cradle song on this album. And it sounds like it was plucked from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Now there's parts of it like the guitar solo I feel like takes it out of that realm, but it still has that feel, it still has that vibe. And you're right, Danny did say that they're ripping off their own stuff. He said something like, is it possible to plagiarize yourself?
Yeah.
I think that was deliberate because, there's stuff on here they literally took from previous albums and put in here, like almost note for note. And I think it's because people are always gonna be like, oh, we want the old stuff, and Danny's gonna go, this is the old stuff. You're literally listening to the old stuff. We've refined it a bit, we've added to it, we've done other things around it, but it is the old stuff, and I think that was the intention here.
Do you have any examples? Like what did
I don't have any specific examples because I'm really bad when it comes to hearing a riff or hearing a passage or hearing a motif or something like that. I can pick it out like that's something. But when they have a dozen plus albums, I'm like, where did that come from?
A dozen plus albums and everything has like the longest name ever with like a bunch of crazy wordplay. It's like, what the fuck was that one called again?
Exactly. Like, I really just suck at picking out where it came from.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing it. I think the most obvious one, honestly, is Malignant Perfection. It sounds like Saffron's Curse.
It does. That one.
That's the easiest one to kind of point out as a reference.
So Malignant Perfection was the first single that they released, and I remember neither of us liked it at all when it dropped. It was on Halloween, which I guess was intentional because he says on All Hallows Eve, so
yeah,
fine.
Ooh.
But I was shocked as to how much I was enjoying it by the end of the week. Like, it's not like my favorite track on the album, but the hook was getting me, and yeah, hearing that drum groove with, the synth in the background is one of the biggest parts of it that reminds you, me, anyone, of Saffron's Curse from Midian. So I was just surprised as to how much that grew on me, and I think it being a single, like the way I feel now, it's like a 50-50 because it makes sense to do this Halloween thing, but I feel like you already have the hooky single in White Hellebore, which I think is overall better. So maybe it wasn't like the most necessary, but generally I started liking the song.
Yeah.
Now, To Live Deliciously is a track that they dropped before the video came out, and I did listen to it once. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. But that song kind of just tanked on me. I grew annoyed with how repetitive this chorus was, and it just felt like it just was so whatever. I got to points where I was just skipping it. I just wanted to get to Demagoguery, which
I think being an opener might have hurt it a little bit.
I think so.
I did make a note that I thought it was a good opener at the beginning, but the more the week went on, I was kind of like, starting the album with this is not a good choice. This is more like a track 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah, like kind of like the song that gets you back after the break.
Yeah, something like that.
Now, that being said, the song that does do that after White Hellebore, You Are My Nautilus, is amazing. I love this song. It's hard to say between that and White Hellebore as to which is my favorite on the record, because I think they're both sick. But You Are My Nautilus has so many different sections on it. I love every single one. Every single one is super duper cool. It shifts around a lot, and every time it does that, it's awesome. There's this slower groove that goes into this faster one on the floor tom before the chorus. Love that. It's so awesome. Picks up into the chorus. Super duper cool. Every time that song came on, it was so good. I feel like one other thing I wanted to mention about Malignant Perfection, I feel like it's a better break song than Non Omnis Moriar. Though Non Omnis Moriar works really well as a break after the Trinity of Shadows, and I feel that that's a good example of how well this album's paced. I was very impressed by the pacing of this album. I feel like everything made sense where it was. It's not like, with the exception of To Live Deliciously, that song was just getting annoying for me. But outside of that, I feel like the pacing of harder songs, slower songs, more melodic, less melodic, they put it in a great order. I feel like it all made sense.
I agree. The album's got a really nice flow to it. It's got, the diversity and the range that you would expect from Cradle of Filth album.
Yeah.
So they're kind of hitting all the correct points there. But yeah, some songs definitely shine over others, and some songs are kind of falling by the wayside, and you kind of like go, it's fine where it is. It's doing its thing, but like it's not doing anything for me. That's kind of my overall take of the album. So some songs that stood out to me, again, White Hellebore, yes, that's one of the top tracks. I really love that one. I really love Zoe's vocals on that song. I think she sounds fantastic. I like When Misery Was a Stranger, the last track. I think that's a great album closer. I like all the nice fills and rolls he's doing at the end. Like it just goes ham on the drums at the end. Just a really cool, old school sounding track. I mentioned last week that Exsanguine Draculae was one of my top tracks, still is. And I mentioned that it had a metalcore riff, and I was thinking back about that comment and thinking maybe that sounded like a slight, like I was saying that was a bad thing. Yeah. It wasn't. I like the riff. It's a good riff. So I just wanted to make that clear. Solid riff, really good stuff.
And considering the fact that Cradle is able to sound like Cradle and make you think this is kind of like metalcore-y is pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's also not something new for Cradle either. Like there's stuff on Dusk and Her Embrace that has metalcore style riffs on it, and that's before metalcore was a thing.
Long before.
Yeah, so if you really listen closely, it's not like they're just riding new trends or anything like that. This was ingrained in back in the beginning of their, building their band. Again, it's not a lot, but sprinkled in here and there. That's what it is. That's their sound. They do a lot of different things. Malignant Perfection, I thought was fine. I didn't think it was that great of a song. It was enjoyable, but I just didn't have a lot to say about it. Right? It's one of those weird songs where it's kind of in this weird spot where like I like it, but it didn't really generate any thoughts out of me.
Were you hooked by the chorus?
I was hooked by the chorus. I was hooked by the whole thing is fine. But as far as like writing notes or anything like that, like I basically have nothing other than the Saffron's Curse reference. You Are My Nautilus, yes, I agree. That's also a great song. I like the pull off riffs at the beginning. I think I mentioned that last week. There's another nice riff in the middle of the song, and the tempo picks up for a few bars. There's also a pretty nice solo section with some trades. The thing I have a problem with this song is it ends with waves crashing ashore, like the sound of waves crashing ashore. That to me sounds like the end of an album.
Oh,
that to me sounds like the end of an album. So I feel like that song should have been the last song, and that would have been a nice way to just close the album off.
That would have been pretty cool. Like it makes sense to have that, Nautilus, but like I see what you mean there. That'd be pretty cool.
So having it in the middle of the album felt a little weird placement-wise, but again, that's a small gripe.
That being said, though, with When Misery Is a Stranger, the ending of that with the drums going crazy and like the whole kind of explosive ending, that's also a good way to end it.
Yeah, that's true too. Exactly. I mean, both songs could fit as a closer.
Yeah.
But either way, whatever. The other song that kind of grew on me a lot was Demagoguery. I think the song is awesome. It presents itself kind of as a slower song at the beginning, but then it gets faster and more energetic at certain parts, which is really cool. It has a really nice mean-sounding groove at the beginning. The riff verses are super tasty. Danny sounds fantastic. And the more I listened to the song, I felt like the more this was sounding like old shit. Like I was getting shades of Her Ghost in the Fog at certain points. And that to me is like peak Cradle. Like that song, I know it's their most popular track, but I think that's for good reason. And I feel like Demagoguery is a good job, similar to When Misery Was a Stranger, at kind of pulling the trends from past albums and kind of making them work on a current album. And I think it did a good job at that. Then you have songs like The Trinity of Shadows and Non-Omnis Moriar, tracks 3 and 4. They have okay elements to them, like hooky choruses. The middle breakdown section of Trinity of Shadows is kind of cool. But overall, these songs were kind of just falling flat, right? So it's like, I did really like this album. I'm a bit biased because, like I said before, I'm a big Cradle fan. Been a Cradle fan for a long time. Probably my top band if I had to pick one. But it's hard for me to go into an album and just like, or this album and just love everything. Maybe I'm overcritical. I don't know, right? Not sure.
Well, with that being said, would you like to rate this album?
Sure. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. I'm just going to say I gave Existence is Futile a 7. I like this more than Existence is Futile. I gave Cryptoriana a toe tag. I don't like this as much as Cryptoriana. This is going to get a 7.5.
Ooh, doorstep.
Doorstep rating.
Well, for myself, I gave both the last 2 records a toe tag.
That's and right. You've given every Cradle album we reviewed a toe tag.
Yes. Are they 4 for 4 with me?
Is the trend going to continue?
Well, I was surprised by this album quite a bit. Because at first, like going into it, I'm like, I don't know. Oh, wow, this is great. And then kind of throughout the week, things were kind of going up and down and whatnot. But I think this is surprisingly a solid album. And I think if, Cradle fans out there, if you were disappointed by this album on the first listen, you should give it another chance because there's stuff that'll grow. There is some strong stuff in here.
Yeah.
However, there are some songs that kind of fall by the wayside, but overall, it's still quite strong. The trend is broken. This album gets a 7 from me.
Wow, a 7, just under my score.
Just under Vile 7.5. But hey, a 7.5 and a 7, solid scores. Barely not getting toe tags from either.
So thinking about it now though, do you think Existence is Futile is a better album than this? Because we had a different rating system back when we did that album.
Yes,
so it's a little bit.
When I looked at the track list for Existence is Futile throughout the week, I'm like, oh man, there are so many like elite level songs on that record that I can remember thinking, like, this is incredible, this is sick, this is sick, this is sick. And a lot of peak Cradle is like that. Yeah. Where it's like almost the whole album is the sick part.
It's memorable just by looking. Yeah.
You just look at it and you're like, oh yeah, yep,
bangers.
Yep. Well, anyway, guys, good scores from us, but not quite gonna make the list. And that's all we got for you guys today. So tell us in the comments below, what do you think of this album? Give it another chance if you don't like it on the first listen. I think we both agree that it can definitely grow on you. And like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
I'm Vile Self.
And keep the horns up.